Welcome to the Ideal Investor Show. This is the podcast where we help you challenge your mindset and discover where you are. Tired of stories about other people's success? We can help you change your life, determine your time freedom point, and join us on the journey to financial success. Let's go. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Ideal Investor Show, where we bring you interesting guests that have experience in real estate, investing, passive income, all that good stuff. And today we want to welcome Mike Manino to the show. Hey, Mike.
Thank you, Axel, very much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome. And thanks for making the time. So Mike is somebody who started very early, was very successful. I guess he doesn't really need to do much anymore if he didn't want to. But Mike, tell us a little bit, how did you end up where you are, what you're doing these days, and how did that happen?
What it looks like now is I have a fix and flip business up in Michigan. That's where I was born and raised. And I moved down to South Carolina coming up on 2 years now. And I have not seen a property in the last 2.5 years because I have really good systems and processes in place that allows me to travel. I was just talking to you about, we're gone for 5-6 weeks a year, in the winter, because I like to be in t-shirts and shorts. That's the way
Right,
God intended. That's my belief. So we have a fix and flip business. We've done over 90 houses now since I started my first flip in 2015. So just under 10 years, we've done 90 houses. And then in 2020, I started heavily focusing on rentals and buying apartment buildings for that passive income, because flipping is great, but the second you stop flipping, your income stops. So right now we are at 100 apartments, just over 100 apartments that pay us every single month. That's what my businesses look like right now.
Okay, that's very cool. Now, you just said when you're flipping, then you're not really making income. Does that mean you flip and then sell, or are you keeping any of the flip properties?
Good question. So what I mean by the second, if I stopped flipping, if I wanted to hey, I'm going to take off a year from flipping, my income just turns off for an entire year, right? Okay. Versus my apartment buildings, if I'm I'm going to stop buying apartment buildings, but every single month I'm still getting paid. That's what I mean by that. I don't keep any single family houses. I only flip the single family houses, and then I buy the multifamily apartments. And I do that for multiple reasons. One is the way they're valued. Houses are valued off of comparables. Commercial real estate, like apartments over 5 units, is valued off of the net operating income. So it's valued based off of your performance as an operator, increasing the revenue and decreasing the expenses, which I like. And then 2 is scalability. So an example I have is one of my properties is 11 unit and it's 3 different buildings. There's a 3 and then 2 4s. And on the 2 4s, we had to replace the roof on them. They're older, the property's built in the 80s, and we had to replace the roof. Each roof, when we replaced them, was about $12,000 per roof. And each roof housed 4 units. So for basically, what's that math? $3,500 per unit is the cost per roof, versus if I had those 8 units instead of just 2 buildings, we had 8 houses, and I did each roof, and they're 1,000 square foot houses. Each roof would at least cost me right now $7,500, to $9,500 times 8, right? So instead of me paying $24,000, I would have paid closer to maybe $80,000 for getting the same repairs done, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Although I think it's a little bit of a tricky example, because that would be kind of like saying you compare that to replacing the roof only over one of the apartments, right? I would hope that your houses, that if you were I have single family homes mainly, and for one, I obviously try to buy them with still some good bones, so to speak, including roof and stuff. Now, on that note, with the apartments, because a lot of our audience members keep asking this, and is there a balance between singles or flipping? With your experience from a flipping business, are you improving the apartment buildings that you're buying, or are you looking that they're doing a reasonably good cash flow off the bat, or both?
Good question. So I took my experience in flipping and I transition that to multifamily. The way we acquire properties, we buy very discounted properties, usually 40 to 60 cents on the dollar. And Also, I'm not afraid of buying properties that need a total renovation and that are totally vacant because I have that experience. So that's why we can buy really deep discounted property. So our goal, I love going into a property. That one we're talking about, the 11 unit. We bought it for $365,000 in 2020. We put $200,000 into it. So our total cost is $565. And we did new roofs, windows, LVP flooring, kitchen cabinets, countertops, paint, doors, trim, everything, $200,000 worth. Now that property's worth just over $1 million, and our rents we're now reaching almost $1,200 per month on these 2 bedrooms. And we did a cash out refinance. We got all of our capital back. We still have $500,000 in equity in the property. And now I own a property at 50% loan to value, totally brand new. Roof, windows,
Yeah.
cabinets, floors, doors, trim, and we don't have any capital into it. And I'm just going to hold it for the long time cash flow for the foreseeable future, probably, for about 20 years. Once it starts needing, some repairs, then we might, sell it then. But my goal is to really buy them and hold them for as long as possible.
Okay. So I've kind of two questions about that. The first one would be, if you find a deal like that, would you agree, or can you describe a little bit the importance of the location? Because I would assume if you say we can get 1,200 now that we have everything brand new, refinished, and make it really nice, it's in the state that it was when you bought it, because it's in like a place where you can only go with body armor or stuff like that. You might not make it,
100%.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Very, very good point. So I'm from Michigan, in between Detroit and Flint. Two places I do not invest. I have bought 90 houses. I have never bought a house in Flint or Detroit or a property.
Yeah, good for you.
It's so funny because so many out of state and out of country investors are very interested in Detroit because of the yield on paper looks so very attractive.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
A lot of things people forget is, with a $40,000 house in Detroit and Section 8 pays you $1,000 a month, you're getting the 2% rule. That's amazing. That a roof, or, I like to do the windows example. Windows right now are $600 a piece. It doesn't matter if it's in a $40,000 house or it's in a $400,000 house.
Yeah.
Right. And if someone comes in and, if you had to replace all the windows in a $40,000 house, there's 10 windows, it's going to cost you at least, $66,000. That house is only worth now $41,000, right? It doesn't really go up.
Right.
That's unfortunate. And with that, usually those types of tenants who are very rough on the properties, like Section 8 and, lower income, and then you're gonna have more busted windows, you're gonna have more drywall repair, and you're just gonna be playing a cat and mouse game. Good question on the area. And something I have people do, go on Google and type in Detroit population on Google, and you will see a map. In 1990, there was over 1 million people in Detroit, and today there's less than 600,000 people in Detroit, half, right? So why would you invest in an area like that? So what you're talking about is very important: location, location, location. When it comes to buying multifamily or commercial, because these are long-term assets. In a flip, you can be in and out in a few months. That's okay.
Right.
But in these long-term assets, the neighborhood really, really matters. And the biggest thing I look for is population growth. Is this also the state? Is it a blue state or red state? And what that means is, do they favor tenants, or does the government favor owners of the property? So how long is it going to take to evict someone? Someone in California could be a year or two, versus I love buying stuff in the South because it takes 45 days.
Well, that's why we have ours in Ohio and Idaho and places.
And it's okay to live in California. Just
totally.
don't buy real estate there.
Oh, no, you're right. I mean, the other thing is, I maybe shouldn't say this, but most of our audience know this anyway. I'm really normally not into stocks except for two. I only have two stocks, and one of them is Tesla. And so I'm pretty skeptical that the main employers in Detroit are actually going to be around in 5 or 10 years from now, So
I just saw, to add to that, in 2022, Detroit or GM was the first time they were not the #1 car sales in America.
Right.
Since 1938, whenever it was, in almost 100 years, the first time. I do believe the big three, they are shrinking because you have the Teslas, you have, Chinese companies that are growing and gaining popularity as more competition. And that's the thing too. And you want to look at so population growth and then also business growth that we're talking about it. Like here in South Carolina, we have in an hour and a half radius of where I live. It's funny, I left the Motor City and there's a Volkswagen battery plant going into Blythewood, South Carolina. We have BMW right outside of Greenville, South Carolina, is putting in a new plant there as well. So we have businesses coming in and putting in new infrastructure and growth, and you see how many jobs it adds versus maybe the Midwest in whole. I don't know. You got to look, Ohio, Michigan, those are more dying states as well. And you can look at the population growth. In Michigan in 2022, we had negative 10,000 population growth, whereas in North Carolina, we had 100,000 plus population growth. South Carolina, 80,000. Tennessee, we had 60,000, and Kentucky, 12,500.
Yeah,
Population
absolutely.
growth.
I always look for the same, either growth or at least relatively stable over time. We don't want to turn this into a discussion, but it's kind of interesting. So yeah, I'm totally with you. Now, the other thing I said earlier, two questions. When you said, okay, we bought this apartment complex with the 11 units for around 300 and then put 200 in, would it be fair, or can you describe a little bit how you basically take money that you make from flipping and then make it available for those investments?
For the first many properties, we never raised capital. We just, me and my partner, we both have businesses and we put our active income, so like my fix and flip income, into buying these apartments. And something that's beautiful with being, when check your state and laws and taxes. I'm not a CPA, I'm not an attorney. My understanding is if you are considered a real estate investor, and I'm actually able to offset my fix and flip income with buying apartments, and I can explain that. So let's say for easy numbers, I made $200,000 this year buying and fixing and flipping houses. That's my profit. Then I go buy an apartment building for $1 million. You usually have to put 25% down, and but what you can do is get called a cost segregation report,
Right.
cost segregation study. So the IRS typically has you depreciate a property over 27 and a half years. That's the roofs, the doors, the trim, the carpet, door handles, all these little things in a property, you depreciate over 27 and a half years, excluding the land value. A cost segregation study, basically, all it does is I pay an accountant $5,000. They come out to the property, they write down the lights, the carpet, all these little things in a property, and they say, hey, these don't last 27 and a half years. They have a very much shorter lifespan. And I'm actually able to, we're seeing about 20 to 25% of our purchase price, we're able to write off year one in depreciation. So for that $1 million property, if I'm able to write off 20%, I'm able to show a paper loss of negative $200,000 for this property I just bought, and that can offset my personal income taxes. And let's say I made $200,000 flipping, it zeroes it out, and then my federal income taxes shows it's a wash, it's a zero. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, just for the audience, even though that is all perfect, as Mike just explained it, he and I, we're not letting it get all the way to zero because you can get any financing if you if you say you make no income. I used to joke around for a while, and you could probably do the same, to say we would both qualify for food stamps. But then you have an issue when you go to a bank and say, hey, I need a loan.
So this is funny. I actually had negative income last year.
I had it a few years too, but I found it makes it a little harder with the lenders if you need lenders.
It depends.
Yeah.
You know what's so funny? I can get apartment financing. I just bought a $2.1 million apartment last month. No questions. No issues.
Yeah, but I think you would agree that the reason that there are no questions or issues is because the asset is basically the only thing relevant for the finance.
And they do, but they want to see that you have a net worth. They want to see you have experience, and they also
Right,
see you
yeah.
want to have liquidity. But they don't look at your personal income taxes, and they do understand the game. They can probably back out my, $200,000 in depreciation, understand. But for a local bank, yes, for a personal house, I actually just bought a house last month, a personal home on the lake, but I had to get seller financing. So you have to be more creative that way,
Right,
right?
yeah.
So, and actually I got it at 2.25% rate. It's 4% cheaper right now than going to a bank anyway. So it worked out. So
Yeah.
you do have to be a little more creative if you show zero.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you're sharing that, because that just goes to show, every time somebody says, okay, I think I have the basics down, that's how I started as well, and that's important. But then as soon as you can say that, then there's all the variations that you can also have, like seller financing. You have multifamily versus single family, or duplex, triplex, fourplex. You have DSCR versus government insured, and on and on and on and
100%.
on. It's like, I keep saying sometimes, I thought I get into something that is similar to like a 500 or 1,000 piece puzzle. And the
Hmm.
further I get into the puzzling, I find out it's probably like a 20,000 or 40,000 piece puzzle.
Yeah.
Every time I think, oh yeah, I think I get the picture, then the picture keeps expanding.
That's a good point too. And then there are lenders. I have some friends who are very successful in this as well and that depreciate. There's specific lenders that do understand, they'll do asset-based lending, I can show what's called a personal financial statement of all the property owned and my net worth and my liquidity. And they would lend me a house based on that. But you're not going to go to a Chase Bank or a Wells Fargo to get that type of loan, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
absolutely. And I mean, in a way, what you described earlier, Mike, I would say, and I would assume at least that you would agree, this 11-unit apartment, 3 buildings complex, you could probably basically treat it like a business and say, okay, here's my business plan. I buy it for 500, I put 700 in. The after repair value is at least 1 million or 1,200,000 or something like that. And here's how we're going to make it. You could have some fancy CAD guy make you pretty pictures and stuff like that, and basically present it like a business plan. And then it's more almost a little bit along the lines of, okay, now I want to have a venture capitalist type of person. Not that it's really venture capital, but it's more along the lines of that, for somebody to say, okay, this totally makes sense. It's a good area, like you mentioned. I always say ugly duckling in a good neighborhood. And then you have a plan on how to make it into a swan again, right?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So like I said, I used my fix and flip income for a long time to buy these properties, and then we want to buy more and you run out of money, right? We actually just did a raise for this. We bought a 44 unit in Kentucky. We did exactly what you said. So especially once you have experience, you should see. I always recommend everyone to document your journey. My medium is Facebook. I have over like 13,000 followers on Facebook. I get many people who really enjoy my content because I'm going through the properties and showing and documenting my journey of like houses. It used to be houses, now it's apartment buildings of what we do. And like you said, we actually just raised, just under $1 million for this property of friends and family money, and they've been seeing my journey along the way. And they like our business plan because we go in, we buy these properties, we renovate them. Our goal is to get our money back in 2 years and then stay in the deal on the refinance, and then just hold these properties for the long-term cash flow and wealth appreciation. And that resonates with a lot of people. So we've actually been doing that for the last few deals, is working with people who want to invest in real estate, but being on the passive side. So that's a good
Yeah.
point.
And so that's a perfect segue, because I was getting ready to ask you about the Wealth Builders Group. Is that basically the main part, or can people also get into that if they want to be investing directly?
Yeah, so that's called, the Real Estate Wealth Builders Group is a free Facebook group we have. If you go to rewbuilders.com, stands for Real Estate Wealth Builders, I have a resources tab if you want to learn how to flip houses. I show a free video how I made $55,000 flipping a house. And there's another tab for our free Facebook group. We have over 1,300 members inside of there. We started this less than a year ago. And my goal inside of there is to post every single day, provide value, and document my journey and the deals that we're working on, the people I'm helping along the way. And it's really to do deals together because that's where the money's made. We
Okay.
do offer coaching and consulting if you want help growing your business. But honestly, I love doing deals with people inside the group because that's where the money is made.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I mean, we do this in our space, same thing. We offer mentoring and access to the network that we've built and the resources that we've built. So that's why it totally made sense to me for you to come on as a guest and describe a little bit your approach, which I would say is kind of adjacent. We never did the flipping. We work with turnkey providers, but the principal idea and getting properties that need renovation to a good state, and so they can become high-performing, cash-flowing assets. Kind of the same, I guess, fundamental idea. Cool. Now, I guess then would it be fair to say when you said friends and family, it includes Facebook friends?
Yeah, yeah, I have. Do you know what's very interesting? And this is why I tell everyone you have to document your journey and share it and let the world know. I recently had a call, Axel, that maybe like 2 months ago now. I had someone who their Facebook profile photo was their daughter as a baby, and now she's a teenager. They've never posted anything. They've never liked anything. We were friends on Facebook. They never liked a photo, never liked a video, anything. And then I put out a call to action saying, hey, if you are interested in, investing in these properties with us, you can leave a comment down below. I'll reach out to you. We'll set up a call and let you know what we have going on. I found out this gentleman has been following me for 4 years. He's seen my journey from the single family evolving into the multifamily. Again, I had no idea he existed, never liked a photo, never liked a video, never commented, never nothing. Come to find out, he owns 50 houses, free and clear, no mortgages on them, and he hates his houses. He says, Mike, I have a problem because he manages them all. He's like, I'm a control freak, and I'm okay to admit that. He's like, I have $1 million in cash, and I have 50 houses that I want to sell. I'm the one doing the maintenance, I'm collecting the rents, and I'm getting older, and I'm just despising these houses, and I want to sell them, but I need a place to allocate my funds. Can you help me? Can I invest in your deals? Right. And, that's just one call. And that's why I say it's very important to document your journey because you don't know who's watching. And then now we're able to help him achieve his goals because he wants to travel more and spend time with his kids and not have to play property manager as much anymore.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, on a much smaller scale, I can relate because every once in a while, I suddenly get an email where somebody says something along the lines of, hey, I saw this particular thing in your newsletter, and I was wondering if I can get into this. And I'm like, I'm wrecking my brain. Who is this? Where is this coming from? Who is this person? Like you just said, it feels like I never heard from them. And then obviously I do the same thing. I offer complimentary call. Let's just talk about it. And then they suddenly reveal, oh yeah, since you started the newsletter, I signed up on your website and I've been getting it and it's good content and I was finally ready. And I'm like, seriously, I mean, I always thought I'm writing the newsletter basically for the crickets in the forest.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, these are the coolest stories, and it's so gratifying to know they might not reveal themselves that much, but there's still an audience out there, and we're not just doing it because somebody said you have to post once a week or you have to post every day or what have you, so cool. Now, if somebody wants to get in, is there, you mentioned a little bit on the site or how to find it. Can you tell, what's the easiest way if somebody either wants to join or get in touch with you?
Yeah. So you can go to www.rewbuilders.com, builders.com. There's a button you can click to book a call with Mike. I am active in the Facebook group. If you do apply to the Facebook group, we have 500 people pending. You have to answer all the questions, or my assistant will not let you in. She's very strict on that. And happy to connect. Happy if you have questions, feel free to ask it inside the Facebook group as well. I love helping people. It's like, especially something you think is a big problem, like a flip or something. And I love, like, you want me to look at photos, help analyze something. I love helping and making things simple. So
yeah, that's very cool. And that's why I was looking forward to having you, because I'm the same way. That's my main motivation, helping others. And if something comes out and it helps them become successful and we have fun, then that's all good. Cool. And we put all of that in the show notes so everybody can easily find it. And put the video on YouTube. So if somebody wants to see how Mike looks like, So.
I did my hair for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Cool. So I have two questions not directly related to our conversation. The first one is, if you could meet anybody dead or alive, who would it be or why and why?
If I can meet anyone dead or alive, who would it be and why? That's a very good question. I'm religious. I would have to say Jesus. I feel like I don't know. I feel like that doesn't need too much of an explanation if I can meet him. But let's see, like,
well, if you would meet him, I guess my follow-up question would you ask him?
Yeah, all the secrets to life. Am I doing it right?
How did you do this thing with did Moses show
walking
you
on water
with the
and
water?
yeah.
Or like,
Teach me the water and the wine. Can you teach me that trick?
Yeah, that would be a good one.
I have honestly though, I would say there's a couple people I look up to like in real estate. One actually just passed away. His name's Sam Zell. He just passed away a few months ago. I listened to his story on he was on Tim Ferriss's podcast a few years ago, right before he passed away. And he wrote a book called Am I Being Too Subtle? He's a guy who's immigrant, came from Poland, and he tells the whole story how it was his dad, escaped during World War II, came to the United States, not speaking English, and it took them months and months to get here, and just the continued trials and tribulations that they go through. And it's so funny how I was scared for moving from Michigan to South Carolina with having a business, right? It's like in the States, same language. Everything's pretty similar, right? And it's 750 miles. I can drive back home if I want, right? And I wasn't escaping a war. I wasn't moving to a new country. I don't understand the laws and the language and all these different, cultural differences. So I loved hearing about that and how he became, a self-made billionaire through real estate and, other, M&A, which is mergers and acquisitions of buying businesses. But Sam Zell is someone that I would have loved to spoke to.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I can relate a little bit. I came over from Germany to the US with the military, and compared to some other people, war or no war, I mean, there's people trying to come to the US for all kinds of reasons to study and then maybe stay or stuff. I have found there's a massive, massive difference, some sort of a support structure. Like, for example, the military is obviously more caretaking besides the job that you do. When I started, I was replacing another guy who had done the job that I was coming to do, but the military made sure there's a little bit of overlap so he and his wife could show us around and stuff. And then my second assignment was in an installation where I was responsible to actually really develop military operations for a larger German contingent. So as soon as we started, there were people that spoke German again and stuff, right? So military is, I think, a little different than just being thrown like from a plane into a country and say, hey, swim or die, something like that. So it's pretty cool. But I mean, on the other hand, it also humbles you a little bit. I think it is a super good education to have lived in two cultures with different languages and totally different ways to do things. And I have to say, there is one little anecdote before we close. I was doing my work mainly in New Mexico and in California. And then I got a contract in my consulting business with the U.S. Army Helicopter Training Center in Dothan, Alabama. And they gave me the contract because I had an aviation background from the Air Force, so that all makes sense. And my wife says to me when I'm leaving for the airport, she says, and make sure that you eat healthy. And so I get to Dothan, Alabama in the late afternoon with my rental car, and I'm like, okay, let's see if there's anything I can find, right? And there was no single fried, double fried, triple fried, Chinese MSD all over the place. I drove up and down 2 or 3 times, and I called my wife and said, either I go in the store and buy a salad, or I'm not going to eat here because healthy is impossible. So I literally thought I went to a different country that just didn't have the same stuff like California. It just didn't exist, literally.
Yeah, there's no smoothie shops, nothing like that.
No, no green juice or any kind of like organic and stuff. And I had actually admittedly a hard time the first few days, especially at Dothan. The people on the base were constantly talking about LA. And I'm like, what the hell, like I'm in Alabama, what do they mean? And it actually means lower Alabama, not LA. What are they talking about? LA is like thousands of miles. Yeah, it was. Yeah, what we do in LA was always what they were.
Yeah, and you're like, you go to LA all the time? What? This is weird.
Well, for me, the funny thing is, I was like, are there any good food places? And they said, oh yeah, all over LA and stuff. Like, I'm like, what the? All right. Funny. So I want to thank you for your time and sharing a bit of your wisdom, and maybe we can do it again.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you.